Hello, and welcome to the Alex and Dom Show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Dom.
And today we are talking about the early life of two of the most prolific serial killers in American history, Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole. Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole were responsible for the deaths of at least 200 people. But what do we know about their early lives that might have led down that dark path? Let's dive in. Henry Lee Lucas was born on August 23rd, 1936, in Blacksburg, Virginia.
Blacksburg.
Yeah, not far where we're from.
Yeah.
Where I'm from, anyways. He grew up in a small shack with no running water or electricity. His father, who had no legs from a railroad incident and was an alcoholic, would often beat him and his mother. His mother was a sex worker who would often bring clients home. Henry Lee Lucas was forced to watch as his mother had sex with these men.
Oh my God, that's got to be traumatizing.
And was also made to dress up as a girl and join in the acts.
You're kidding.
No, yeah, you heard right. Henry Lee Lucas.
Horrible freaking parents.
Henry Lee Lucas.
With me, one of my issues with watching most of these documentaries or doing any kind of research on serial killers is a lot of them have really, really sad childhoods, and you want to feel sorry for them. They've done monstrous things, and obviously there's not really a way for them to redeem themselves after they've done that stuff. But it's still, you hate to see that happen to anybody.
You can have compassion. You can have compassion for someone, and still deplore their actions.
Yeah.
You can compartmentalize, I guess, that. You can be like, oh, I feel pity for this person, but also he's a monster. Yeah. Henry Lee Lucas was forced to dress up as a girl to engage in sexual acts with his mother and her clients. According to him, this is all what he said.
His stuff, yeah.
He was even made to go to school dressed as a girl, and it was the only time he was most likely clean. According to his teachers, that was the only time he was ever clean.
Was when he was dressing as a girl.
Dressing as a girl. It's a traumatic experience that no child should ever have to go through, and it's likely had a huge impact on his psyche. On to Ottis Toole now. Ottis Toole was born on March 5th, 1947, in Florida. His family was also dysfunctional. His mother was a religious fanatic who would often beat him. I don't know why. It seems like that's a common thing is when they're abused.
It's religious in nature.
Yeah. And his father was also an alcoholic who would molest him.
Oh my God. When
Ottis was just 10 years old, his younger brother was hit by a car and killed right in front of him. This trauma, along with the abuse he suffered at home, likely contributed to his later crimes.
I would say so. If even a fraction of that stuff's true, then yeah, it's...
So what do you think about both of their childhoods? Do you think that, obviously, it was horrible? And another story about Henry Lee Lucas with his mother, not only making him contribute within the sex acts, but also she was angry at him when he was 3 years old. She hit him in the head with a block of wood and knocked him out for 3 days. He was unconscious for
3 days?
For 3 days.
So he could have brain damage too from that.
Yeah, absolutely. Man. It wasn't the mother who took him to the hospital. It was her pimp.
You're kidding.
Yeah. The mother didn't care that she hurt Henry. It literally...
So her pimp was more concerned about her child than she was.
Yeah.
And took him to the hospital.
Absolutely.
That is so messed up.
And he had a severe brain damage.
It would make sense that they're, I guess, kind of drawn to each other then, though. The two of them. Yeah,
because backstories,
they people from,
not the same exact walks of life, but both have trauma.
Yeah, they can
from
relate.
Childhood. Back to Henry Lee Lucas. When Henry was just 14 years old, he killed his own mother.
God, 14.
Yeah. He claims that it was in self-defense, but it's hard to know for sure.
I don't know. I feel like even if she wasn't currently at that time doing something to him, I feel like it was probably justified. I know it's not good to kill anybody.
Yeah,
but I mean,
then again, he accidentally killed his mother, according to him. He was sent to the juvenile detention center, where he was repeatedly raped.
This dude has the worst life.
Yeah, by other inmates.
Oh my god!
It's a common theme in the early lives of serial killers: a cycle of abuse and trauma that leads to violence.
So have they definitively proved that link? Because I know that is a big thing, is nurture versus nature when it comes to serial killers.
They have not.
So they can't prove without a shadow of a doubt that the childhood has a contributing factor.
No, there's been people who've been through traumatic,
perfectly normal,
perfectly normal childhood and been a serial killer.
Right.
There's also been a lot of the childhood. It's according to the serial killer that they think, and obviously
we only have their.
But there's also parents that are alive, but they're not going to admit like, oh yeah, I used to beat the shit out of my child.
That's true. Yeah.
They've also had. There's also been people who've had this traumatic childhood and not turned out to be a serial killer. They're perfectly normal.
Yeah.
So
it's weird. I don't know what it does then. Maybe one day we'll figure it out.
So, so they think that a cycle of abuse and trauma leads to violence.
Yeah. So how did he accidentally kill his mother?
Well, according to Henry Lee Lucas, he pushed or punched her with an open penknife in his hand, and the penknife punctured her neck, and she bled out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
he was
again, that's exactly how she died. She did bleed out from a neck wound, but they don't know if he accidentally did it or he did it on purpose.
So he's saying the knife was in his hand. He had the penknife in his hand. He's saying he just went to punch her or slap her
or push her away. Yeah,
and it accidentally stabbing her.
It nicked her.
So maybe he was like trying to fend her off with the knife or something, and then she.
Like I said, the only people that know are Henry and the mom.
Dead.
Yep. As for Otis Toole, he was also imprisoned at a young age for arson, which is another one of those McDonald triad: setting fires, torturing animals, pee in bed.
Yeah.
So for arson, while in prison, he met another inmate named Henry Lee Lucas. This is where they met up.
Yeah.
Yep. They quickly became friends/lovers and would go on to commit multiple murders together. Mm-hmm. But that's a story for next episode.
Oh, leaving off on a cliffhanger.
Yep. So what is your takeaway from their childhoods?
In this situation, I could 100% understand that both of their childhoods caused them to be the way that they are. I can't say for 100% certainty if they had a normal childhood, maybe that they wouldn't do those things, but I would think in this case it's a serious contributing factor.
Mm-hmm. So with Henry Lee Lucas, there's also another story from his childhood of a traumatic event. Him and his brother were having a fight.
Is this the brother that got hit by the car?
No, that's Otis's brother.
Yeah, sorry.
Henry Lee Lucas's brother was him and him were fighting with a knife, and his brother stabbed him in the eye. Henry Lee Lucas
stabbed Henry Lee Lucas in the eye. Oh, that's why he has that
milky eye.
Yeah,
but the mom did not take him to the doctor.
What is wrong with these parents, man? How can you have a kid and act like this? I don't understand.
She was literally like a 2-cent whore, basically.
Yeah, but I mean that's.
So I mean, it's not like she was like the best role model for him, and obviously making him watch her commit or have these acts and even involving him in such is not something that a normal parent would do anyways. No. So but it started to heal on its own.
The eye did?
Yeah, the eye started to heal on its own. It was almost like it was healing and stuff. Yeah. And one of the few days he actually did attend school, the teacher went to throw a ruler at another student that was sleeping.
No.
And the ruler went right and hit him right in the eye.
Right in the spot?
Yeah, right in the same eye, and it deadened the eye. So
why
now
is the teacher throwing rulers at kids. What year is this?
The 30s and 40s.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So it caused his eye to leak a milky substance that stank.
Oh, dude.
really bad. So he had a really milky smell to him. And
That's gross.
with
And
him
unfortunate.
being a drifter later in life, they don't take baths
Yeah.
all that often. So he stunk like mold.
He was a vagabond.
Yeah, literally. I mean, any drifters that you like see in horror movies, it's basically Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole were their inspiration.
Yeah. That's wild, dude.
So,
The most unfortunate.
and the father.
No.
So the father, if you remember the incident I told you about where he has no legs.
Right.
Well, it's rumored that he fell asleep, got drunk and fell asleep on the railroad tracks, and that's how he lost his legs. Mm-hmm. Well, he got drunk one day, fell asleep again on the railroad tracks.
After he lost his legs?
Yes, and was hit again. They think that he probably committed suicide.
Oh, okay.
But
that's a horrible way to commit suicide too. Like, okay, I lost my legs to this. Well, it's kind of poetic in a way. My whole life was ruined by this train track. I'm gonna end my life on this train track.
Well, Blacksburg in the 30s and 40s, there really wasn't that much there.
Right.
It's like now there's Virginia Tech, obviously, and stuff. But back then, it was like literally you had a railway, you had town center with all the like stores, general stores and stuff. Yeah. But everything else was like dirt road, like forestry and stuff around and stuff. So there wasn't really a lot. So yeah, he drank all the time and stuff. And Henry Lee Lucas would just play and get knife fights with his brother, I guess, which is another thing.
Rulers thrown at him by teachers.
With that kind of childhood, that the siblings probably didn't love each other.
Yeah.
Because as we'll find out next episode, when he was drifting, he would go and stay with his siblings and stuff. Really? So we'll talk about that, his relationship with his siblings as well, along with the string of dead bodies that Ottis and Henry leave in their wake.
Now, weren't they also? They would claim credit for a lot of murders that they didn't commit.
So Henry Lee Lucas is actually known as the confession killer.
Right, because he just confesses to everything.
He confessed to over 3,000 murders.
Yeah, which
he technically can only be linked to. He can only be relinked to 3.
Right.
And we'll talk about those next episode. And the one he was actually sentenced to death for, that they don't believe he actually did.
So the one that he probably didn't actually do is the one he got sentenced to death for?
Yes.
Wow.
And she was known as the Orange Socks Girl, because that was the only thing that was found on her was orange socks.
That sucks,
but
dude.
We know her name now.
Oh, really?
Yes.
When did we find that out?
Just, I think, 1 or 2 years ago.
Oh, that's crazy.
So we'll talk about that next episode when we go through it. Yeah. So I find the early lives to be fascinating, just to see what they are all about.
Kind of get a peek behind maybe some of the reasons why they are the way they are.
Yeah. So this concludes our episode about the early lives of Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole. It's important to remember that no one is born a serial killer, and there is no gene or nothing in the DNA that makes you a serial killer, as far as we know.
Right.
Because we have not.
That they say is the biggest contributing factor with that, though, is the empathy.
Well, the lack of empathy. They're also they don't see people as humans.
Yeah.
They see them as objects to get what they want.
Which is a big thing with narcissists.
Yeah.
Especially with narcissistic parents, they'll look at their kids more as possessions or things to control than...
Henry's mom definitely was a narcissist.
Right.
And I think that... I know that Henry said that the dad used to beat the mom, but I don't know. She was a very strong-willed mother, uncaring. I don't think that the father... Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, maybe before he lost his legs. Yeah. But still, I mean... And Henry with legs, you think he would get away, but fear does a lot of things to you, and So, so something in their early lives has led them down that path, whether it was abuse, trauma, or some other factor. By understanding these factors and addressing them early on, we might be able to prevent future tragedies.
Which would be cool. It's just the whole...
Yeah, it's just getting to that point.
Behavioralist or behavior analysis.
But even them, they can't...
It's not an exact science.
Yeah, it's not exact science. And a lot of people think, oh, well, my son's burning ants with a magnifying glass. Yeah. I'm scared they're going to be a serial killer. Or, there's been stories. I've heard stories about people where they used to get bullfrogs and throw them and stuff and all that. And my uncle was a big contributor of that. He would like put a straw up a frog's butt and blow it up or something.
What?
Yeah, according to him, that's the story he would say. He'd stick it up a butt and blow it up, and like that. But
reminds me of the episode of, or not the episode, that movie,
Shrek. Yes,
where she's blowing up the frogs.
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't make you a serial killer. It's like the McDonald's triad is the only thing that really links most serial killers together.
Yeah.
The wet bedwetting through teenage years.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, if your kid's bedwetting at 4 or 5 years old, it's normal.
Yeah.
You know, like that. They just drank too much the night before. But if they're doing it all the way until consistently past 12, then you might want to get them checked out, see a psychiatrist or something. And of course, the torturing animals and the arson.
The hard thing with that, I'm sure for parents, is looking at your kid as anything other than
perfect.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously they will be able to admit that there's some issues there, but they're still like, okay, well, we'll work through that on our own.
It always doesn't. It never hurts to have someone to talk to.
Yeah.
Just to go and just have someone to talk to, and other than your parents, because obviously there's a lot of stuff you don't want to tell your parents, like, hey, I have these dark thoughts, but I mean, sometimes it's easier to tell a stranger something than someone so close to you.
Sometimes that's true,
yeah. So thank you guys for listening. This episode was a little bit shorter, but next episode is going to be a long one, and it's also going to be in a lot of detail going into the murders. So if you guys have a problem with the details of the murder, might want to skip that episode, but part 2 will be of that. Follow us at the link below, and we'll see you in next week for part 2 of Henry Lee Lucas and Ottis Toole.
Thanks for listening.